Yo, guys. It is Old Man G here, back again for another show. I'm joined obviously by at Tom the journalist, um, and we're here to obviously talk about the latest Manchester United transfer news. In this case, injury update news. Before we get into it, if you're new to channel, to like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Studio. Follow us on Twitter at We United X and smash that notification button. Obviously, road to 5K. Apologies for lack of streams. I can only do these when I can. I'm a very busy guy. Um, but with the season approaching, I think Charity Shield is next week, if I recall, and the season afterwards. So obviously, we'll have a season preview, best 11, etc. Obviously, transfer news, etc. We'll get into it, So, but first and foremost, obviously, I want to introduce to the panel. Tom, obviously, if you have any questions, by the way, guys, make sure you get into the comments as well. You greatly appreciate it. Pick up a Tom in the chat as well. But yeah, introductions. Tom, buddy, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm not doing so bad, Jay. I hope yourself's doing well and everybody who's tuning and watching. And yeah, guys, as always, don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the stream as well. It goes a long way to supporting G and his channel growth and trying to hit that next milestone that he wants to get to. So yeah, give him a subscribe and a like and a follow.
I appreciate it, Tom. Thank you so much. So obviously, as everyone can see, there's been a bit of breaking news in the last few hours or so. And we're going to talk about that, and also just how this plays into Manchester United's transfer plans. And that is obviously the injury. Big up, Jonathan. I hope you're doing well in the chat. And that is basically the news and we saw, I think, a few videos on crutches, was that, although there's more tests to follow soon, Manchester United are now concerned LENY YORO, who obviously is the player that Manchester United really recently signed, centre back, has fractured his metatarsal. It'd mean up to 2 months sideline of the new signing, as per Chris or DM. So, and obviously, there's a video going around that shows him in a moon boot, effectively, with crutches. And as someone who obviously works in medicine, who works specifically in radiology, and fractured metatarsals obviously take quite some time to heal. We saw it with obviously Lisandro as well. And actually, when he was kind of rushed back and he played, it made the injury worse. So to be honest, if he has got a fractured metatarsal, I think we're talking 2 months is a minimum. Now, 2 months is a minimum, not a maximum. I would probably push it as far back as probably even 3 months. And so we're at the beginning of August now. So you've got August, September, October. So he would probably be available towards the end of October, which, considering obviously, United signed a new centre back, this is a devastating blow, I think, for Manchester United, for him and the player. Obviously, hope he recovers. And again, in a similar situation to the beginning of last season, where United signed a player, in this case, last season, I think it was Højlund, and he was out for quite some time. So I am curious to know, for your thoughts, Tom, on were United aware that he had this injury? Was it that it was a situation worth the risk? And do you think that now, because of this injury, that it means that United might be that there might be more pressure on United to go out and get someone like de Ligt, for example?
Yeah, well, probably just to add a little bit of context to it, prior to the Arsenal pre-season game in LA, the fitness department records at Manchester United state that LENY YORO had only actually participated in 50% of the training sessions since joining Manchester United. Now, he missed 3 training sessions prior to it, and he only had 1 training session just before the Rangers game, which they ended up playing him in when they played up in Scotland. The difference with LENY YORO now is he's not been 100% fit to start these games. A lot of the players in the squad won't be 100% match fit, so to speak. That's what a pre-season is there for, to get them up to scratch. The difference with LENY YORO is when he was at Lille, he left and he was actually with the French Olympic squad to play at the Olympic Games in Paris. He was withdrew from the camp because Manchester United made the same point with Argentina, with Garnacho, where they didn't want Garnacho to participate at the Olympics. So Manchester United's policy on having players play at the Olympics is non-existent. They don't like the policy of it. And LENY YORO was no exception. So if he was going to come to United, he wouldn't have participated in that. He therefore had missed the training sessions prior to it at the start of pre-season, like a lot of the players have at the moment. Like Kobe Mino hasn't participated in sessions, and Garnacho's another player who hasn't. So there's a couple of players that have been missing from the usual squad bulk. But the difference with LENY YORO is the Arsenal game in particular. It's a high-intensity game. You're going up against players who are going to stretch the game, who are going to make you run, who are going to make you overall work hard within the game. There's elements that I will add to it. The SoFi Stadium which they played at, and I've said this before about American pitches, and you're going to hear a lot about it coming up to the 26 World Cup. The American pitches that clubs play on when they go on US tours are not built for football games and soccer games. They are NFL stadiums on artificial bladed grass. So the bladed boots that players use when you take British soccer players or European players to America to play football or soccer in America, as it's called, when you take them over there into these stadiums to use it, these injuries and these apparent, as Americans call it, accidents are going to happen because the turf that they use with the boots doesn't match up. Whereas in the UK or in Europe, you use polygrammic grass, which is real grass, turf grass. In America, they use artificial grass based upon US sports prohibit them in using that. And that's their sport, and that's the grass and blades that they use. So the difference with it is the studs that soccer players will use when they play in America, because the soccer boots are used to natural grass as opposed to artificial, they get stuck in the ground. So when a player starts to run, they won't run as quickly. And if they do stud in the ground, the likelihood that they'll pull something is very high, based upon that the depth of the studs are going to go deeper toward the ground. Whereas on artificial pitches, it's just going to stick. It's like being in quicksand, and then you try and run off. So you've got to pull something. And you saw it with Hoyland, where it happened in the first 10 minutes. You then saw it with LENY YORO, and unfortunately for LENY YORO, in his case, it's a lot more severe than they initially anticipated. And from what I understand anyway about metatarsal fractures, when it normally occurs with your bones within your foot, the sort of pain that it is, it's almost like a repeated stress that you have on it. And your ability to walk on it's prohibited. It can't be done. It can be and can't be done, depending on the level of pain that you're actually in. But the severity of it is that medical advice is to avoid walking on it excessively, but then also not to walk on uneven ground without having crutches, because it prohibits and it eliminates you having problems where it might displace itself even more, and then you're just going to aggravate it. And the one thing that we know with Manchester United anyway, when they've had injuries from last season, players have had aggravated injuries from many, many times over the last couple of seasons. But in what your assessment was, G, in terms of the time lapse of it, the medical department, as it stands right now, have put an 8 weeks schedule on it that he's going to be out for. They believe that's sort of the medium part. They don't believe it's the latest that they'll get him back or the earliest. They think that's like the middle grounded figure. The earliest that they're hoping that they'll get him back for is within 6 weeks. But the very latest, you're talking maybe 12 weeks, 3 months, like you said. That's the problem, because it's such a technical fracture that he's got in his foot. It requires more detailed scannings to actually get accurate readings of how long he will be out for 100%. And until they get that point, to answer the second part of your question, where you said about, does that mean they'll boost up and go in for another target at centre-back? I think as soon as they know the bulk of how long they're going to miss him for, that's probably going to excel going and getting another player in that position.
Well, you'd think so, because like I said, I mean, given what happened with, because Lisandro's injury was the same, you know, he had a fracture in his forefoot, which I suspect was his metatarsal as well. And metatarsal fractures, and obviously I speak as a medic, are it, I mean, depends on the nature of it, if it's a stress fracture, for example, or if it's like an acute fracture. But regardless, they take time to heal. And depending
Mm-hmm.
which one it is, you know, so you have to give a certain degree of rest and time, etc., etc. Because the problem is that because of it's, especially as a footballer, you use your feet, so it's very easy for the injury um, to reoccur or to be worse if it's not allowed to heal properly. You know, so
Yeah.
because as someone who's fractured the metatarsal in the in the hand, um, realistically, and that's in the that was in my hand, that was in my forearm sort of view. Realistically, you know, what they tend to say advice is that it should be immobilized for about a month, which is why he's in a moon boot, and then there shouldn't be any real activity like for another month, effectively, you know. So effectively, you're oh no, as you're on a call. So yeah, so Tom will be right back. So what I'll actually do is I'll put my medical hat on, because this is maybe where I can give a bit more valuable information regarding the fracture. So big up JM42. Hope you're doing well, buddy. So I'll put my medical hat on for a second and try and maybe educate people watching regarding metatarsal fractures and the timing period and stuff like that as well, as a medic myself, while we wait for Tom to come back. So metatarsal fractures, for those who don't know, the metatarsal is actually a bone in the forefoot of your foot. It's like in the mid portion, and it connects the midfoot, okay, to the tiny bones in your in your toes. Basically, that's what the metatarsals are, and they provide stability, ability to walk, etc., etc. Okay, so, and obviously because of it, because you spend a lot of time walking, you know, and weight bearing, you know, like they obviously hold a lot of weight, as it were. Now I don't know what the nature of this fracture was for LENY YORO. It could be, if it's a stress fracture, if it's a stress fracture, so stress fractures are, and I will show you pictures. Maybe I'll do it later, medical sort of thing. I'm thinking of actually doing a medical thing in this channel, but let me know what your thoughts are. But anyway, when it comes to stress fractures, if it's a stress fracture, that implies there's been repeated trauma, repeated use. Hi, you look like you're wearing a AFCQ. No, I'm not. I'm not at all. I'm not at all. In fact, let me, if you want me to switch to single mode here, go down there. Nope, it's United, Red Devil. So there you go. Let's go back. There we go. So yeah, so just on the fractures though, if it's a stress fracture that LENY YORO has, then it's often due to, and that's will probably be more concerning because he's quite young, and it means that there's been repeated micro trauma to the foot, and those often take a lot longer to heal, just because it's often due to repeated trauma, overuse, etc. You get stress fractures mostly in the foot or in the knee, for example. Now, if it's acute fracture, i.e., he fractured it while playing football, etc., again, it will take time for the fracture to heal. And as I was saying to Tom, usually what tends to happen is that the foot is immobilized into a boot or cast or whatever it is. In the case he had obviously boot on, it'll be immobilized, as in he won't be able to use it for about a month, and then that'll probably come off in about a month. And then while he'll be able to walk on it, he won't be able to do any kind of physical activity. Obviously, these guys are footballers. They take painkillers, they take pain relief, all these different sort of things. But if you're talking about proper healing and proper rest, really, we're talking about 2 months. It should only be after 2 months where he should probably begin to start do maybe towards the end of the second month he can do a bit of light training, but really sort of physical demanding training isn't going to occur until into after the second month is over. So if we're talking August, October, really, we're not. I'm saying we're probably not going to see him in the United shirt until probably the beginning of November. That is what I'm saying. If we're talking about allowing it to heal properly, because here's the key thing with footballers and medical staff, etc., is that because of the pressure and demands, and you don't know whether United are going to be short of centre backs or the rest of it, there'll be a pressure to get him back to be fit quickly. And what I think, and what am I worried about, like what happened with Lisandro, is he does get rushed back, and it basically is made worse. You know, that is the big worry from in my personal opinion. Did it get worse with playing on turf? And if it kept happening, this is a big worry. Hope yours. I mean, this is the key. This is a good thing, James, and I think Thomas on that. It is very interesting how, you know, when we had a same American tour last year, and we got 3 injuries. I think Mainu was injured significantly. Casemiro was injured, and I think was Hoyler might have been injured before, but I don't know if he played. But I think we got at least 2 or 3 injuries from that tour alone. Thank you, man. Keep it. Thank you. Big up, Jamesy. Thank you for support, man. I try my best. But as a medical professional, you know, there is something to be said about what's going on in the US tour. I don't know whether it's the fact they use turf, whether the studs are not don't work on the American fields, but this is something that should be, because this is the second time in a row where we've had another injury, and potentially, you know, because I think we've got one more game, there could be further injuries. Hopefully not. But there is something to be said. You know, should we be doing this US tours? I mean, even if you look going ahead, you know, you look at the Copa America, there were injuries there. You look going ahead in the World Cup. Should this be something that should be flagged? Should this be something that should be flagged to the authorities? Should there really be games, especially from European teams, that given that the pitches are going to have turf as opposed to grass, which is what they should have. They should have grass and should be layered down grass. As opposed to sort of turf, which, you know, is not really ideal. I don't know. But essentially what I'm trying to say, guys, is that, you know, as I think Atoman kind of summed up at the beginning. He said, only at Man United does this happen. Lenny practically had no injuries last year, but joins and within 2 weeks is out for 2 months. Exactly. I mean, I would caveat that by saying that he wasn't 50% sort of fit, but I mean, to be honest, most players weren't fit, you know. So I do think it is it's unfortunate, it's annoying, and it recurs, and it keeps on coming in a significant position. You know, we've already let Varane go, who had picked up his injuries, but he's gone. Lisandro is back, you know, but he needs to work up his fitness, and he came back essentially from a long-term injury. You know, so we're thinking already of like, oh, we need to sell Maguire and Lindelof. But once again, we're in the same situation where we think, oh, we can sell Maguire and Lindelof. But at the end of the day, you get another centre-back injury, and then what happens? You know, so we're down effectively to Martinez, Maguire, Evans, and Lindelof. And Lindelof, I'd argue, is liability, because Lindelof was injured for quite a lot of last season. Low-key, even though he wasn't first choice, Lindelof was out for a while. You know, so really and truly right now, centre-back wise, I know Luke Shaw is back, but again, he literally just got fit for the last 2 games of the Euros. Can you rely on that? So really and truly, all you have right now is Lisandro, Maguire, and potentially Evans. And Maguire's come up with injuries. So you could have a situation where you have Lisandro and Evans, and then what happens if Lisandro picks up? So we're back to where we were potentially last season, where you have Johnny Evans and a makeshift back 4, just like that, Big up, Addison. Just big up, Stephanie. Hope you're doing well. Thanks everyone who's joining in. 50 likes. Yep, everyone like. Follow everyone like the video and subscribe if you are new. Why is Man United always in the US? Isn't it? I mean, I don't get that either, Raul. I don't get that either. You know, I'm not saying that you wouldn't necessarily have injuries there, but I just feel like it just seems to be quite. I think, and I suspect it's because we have US owners, who, you know, are obsessed with pushing the market. So I suspect it's that we have US owners. But you know, whether the Glazers care remains to be seen, but I should certainly think something that should be looked into as to why it is that these injuries keep on happening when we go to the US. You know, the preseason tour should be to prepare the squad, but it feels like the preseason tours, we have a plan on what we used to do, we get injuries, and then the whole thing just goes out of the water. You know, I mean, LENY YORO had what, 1 or 2 training sessions. That is not enough to pull you. No, it's not. It's not. But I mean, still. Oh, sorry. But still, I mean, he only played 1 half, I think. So you'd still think that that should be, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. How do you build fitness up? I don't know. Go to New Zealand, Australia, maybe. Like I said, I don't know. I don't know. All I know is, so yeah, we're just waiting for Tom to come back, and we're getting into more transfer news. But like I said, I can probably give at least my medical insights into the fracture. But for those who are joining in, as everyone knows, it as people have been talking about, LENY YORO, Manchester United's recent signing, is out for at least 2 months. Well, it looks like he'll be out for 2 months. The club haven't confirmed it, but with a fracture to his metatarsal has been confirmed, or they're concerned that it is, it's going to be from 2 months. We will see. We will see what happens, but I think, and I want to see what Tom thinks when he comes back, because I think he's. What did Tom say again? Tom said he's on a call. He'll be on a call. But I think that you know, United, and unfortunately, it puts Bayern in a stronger position, because Bayern then know, oh, United need to sign. They actually need to sign a new centre back. So anyone thinking that we're going to get a cut price deal for ligt, is not thinking straight, you know. And this only just strengthens Bayern's hand, where they think, well, hey, if you don't pay us your fee, you're not getting him. And also, we know that you're basically down a centre back and you need one. You know, will Everton drop the asking price? Probably not. So, you know, we're left with where we are. Fake theory is that the Glazers may have probably put a jinx. Who knows? Who knows at this point? Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Maybe they're like, this isn't our site. LENY YORO isn't going to sell shirts. What can we do? You know. Question to both. In the past, players played injured. That doesn't seem to happen anymore. Why is that? I mean, I'll answer this as a medical professional. I'll wait for Tom. I would argue the case is that they are playing with injuries. They are. But the reason why it may not be as apparent, because they're taking painkillers, they're having injection steroids, doing a lot of things. So a lot of things are happening behind the scenes. A lot of players are playing injured. But the problem is that, and in my opinion, it's the case, is that there's no choice, because there is so much football being played now. If you look at the amount of games that United could potentially have in a season, it's going to be, you know, it's more than, potentially could be more than 60 plus, you know, or up to 60, because you already got your Premier League games, home and away, and you're playing 19. So that's what, 38 games. So you already got 38 games. Then you're playing your Carabao games. If you play, assuming there's no second legs, but if you play all those games fine, you're probably playing about 5 games. Assuming there's no second legs, you're probably playing about 5 games. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. FA Cup, same, probably about 5 games. Assuming there's no second leg. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you're already on 48 games a season. Now United in the Europa League. And group-wise, you're playing at least 10 games. So we've already got 58 games here. And then if you qualify into the last stages, you're playing, you know, round of 16, quarterfinal, semi-final, final. So on 62 games, potentially. And you need a squad for that. And unfortunately, you know, if you've already got players dealing with injuries, how is it that you're going to manage a squad for 62 games? And that's where Erik Ten Hag really needs to improve his ship, in my opinion. Sid says, hi, great content, gents. Keep it up. Want to ask about a new stadium. Where are we going to find money to be and clear one bit? And the Glazers are gone by 20. So, yep. So I'm going to call it. Tom is just away taking a phone call. So stay tuned. He'll be coming back. So he's just, in fact, let me just take a note. 1 second. Let me just make a note. But if you have any questions about, so what I can answer, until I wait for Tom back, is if you guys have any specific questions regarding Lenny Yoro's injury, the nature of it, what does it entail, I can answer that as a medical professional, but also what you think this means to Manchester United, obviously going forward and preseason things. So I can address those things while I wait for Tom for the transfer question. But I'll come back to Sid. Any update on Rabiot would be a fantastic sign. I mean, I can give you, even though sometimes I can give you an update on that there is no link. There's with Manchester United and Rabiot. There's no link at all. Yes, he obviously is a free agent, but as it stands now, Manchester United are not particularly interested in pursuing this guy, whether that's because of his, estranged mother, or whether, quite frankly, it's because he rejected Manchester United before. So there isn't any clear indication from the board or even fans that they'd be even be interested in signing Rabiot. So that's the update from that. I mean, would I mind Rabiot, Manchester? I think if you're wanting to build a midfield, if we don't get Agate, for example, PSG obviously signed João Neves, then we're in a situation where potentially beggars can't be choosers. That's where we are. Do I have any more questions? I don't. Okay. Let's just have a look. Okay. So basically, in conclusion, guys, and like I said, keep keeping questions coming. In conclusion, guys, this is a significant blow to Manchester United. Do I think Lenny Yoro come good? Yes, I think he will. But I think we need to really start asking questions about, why are we doing tours in America so far away? Why are players constantly getting injured all the time? And also on Ten Hag as to, if that's the case, what's your rotation like? Obviously, rotation in this season, it's not his fault. It's a preseason game. When it comes to, in the league, in the FA Cup, in the competitions, what is his rotation like? I just feel this season that we are going to have to, rotate a lot. Oh, I can hear you back, Tom. I can hear you back. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. No, it's not. So let me. I'll bring up. I thought there might be other questions for Tom earlier. Okay, Sid. So Sid says, "Hi, great content. Keep it up. Wanted to ask about new stadium. Where are we going to find the money? 2 billion and clear 1 billion debt, and the wall of glaze be gone by 2025. Thanks. Do you have any thoughts about that, Tom?"
Yeah. Well, a lot of this new stadium rumours and stuff. The way that it's worked with the regeneration project is that Manchester United, they've set up a panel committee headed by Lord Coe with all the different local ambassadors. You have Gary Neville, who's almost an ambassador for the city of Manchester, and the reintegration of the local area. You've got the mayor, Andy Burnham, on the panel, along with your likes of Sir Jim Ratcliffe's, Sir Dave Brailsford, and now the new CEO, Omar Barada. They're looking at the different strategic options that they have at the moment. They've almost used the last couple of months as like a bit of a tour. Go and see the different facilities that you have at the moment. For example, they've had Populous, which was the design developers who actually developed the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. They've spoken directly with them regarding the inners of how Tottenham had reconstructed their stadium from scratch, the way in which that they can modernise it but also keep historical value of the football club. So what Tottenham Hotspur did was the bricks and mortar that they'd knocked down from the stadium, they converted into stone-ins. So the pathways on which Tottenham Hotspur fans walk within the stadiums, along the halls or the grounds of the stadium, is a part of the old White Hart Lane. And that's, as they believe, keeping the values and traditions of their club. With United, they want to go down a similar approach. They've also visited the Bernabeu in terms of how they've redeveloped it, which is the second option that they have if they wanted to. or they can build from scratch. And one of the bigger projects of what they looked at, especially when they was in the US, was what the Kroenke family have done with the LA Rams with the SoFi Stadium, to build not only the stadium itself, but the actual architectural landscape around it. That's what effectively Ineos and Sir Jim Ratcliffe want to create with Manchester United. They want to re-emerge the whole area of it. They don't just want to build this one stadium in the middle of nowhere that might be all modern and glitz and glamour. They want a full fan park, centre park, all the way around it, and have that as almost the whole local area has been re-galvanised from its old derelict self that it is today, unfortunately, due to the neglect. And to answer Sid's second question as to where are we going to find the $2 billion for it, effectively what it will be is that Sir Jim Ratcliffe, I would like to think anyway, will probably propose he'll put so much money in partnership with Ineos, where they might stump up, say, £1 billion, and the other £1 billion in terms of building it up to scratch is where I think they'll do kind of what Tottenham did, and Daniel Levy, where they got a debt payment deal, which is we get lent £1 billion from an investment corporation or a bank. They get a quarter of the annual sales or revenues of the stadium itself, and they get that over, say, 25 years until you pay the stadium debt off that you owe to them of £1 billion. And as soon as it's paid off, you owe no ties to them at all. There's no, and the interest rate payments, especially in terms of borrowing right now, it works out cheaper for you in the one day. For anybody that's in business or finance will know this. It works out actually cheaper for yourself if you actually borrow money and you pay it back later than if you use your own money and you're out of pocket in the short term to actually try and recoup your money back. So it actually works out better if you loan the money, and it works out so that you have more money in your pocket to still actively explore different avenues. So if you want to invest in something else, or they want to invest more into the first team or the women's team, they can do, and they're not going to be hampered by that. In terms of the debt, again, it's another task for which the Omar Barad, as the new CEO, is now taking on board. They are looking at it actively as to Manchester United last year had a very good sales pattern, particularly on the financial side, one of the better sales patterns than what they've had in recent years since COVID. And Manchester United's problem, they've never had a problem making money. They've always made money as a football club. But the difference is now, the Glazers can't take dividends out of the football club for 3 years. So Jim Ratcliffe's guaranteed that, and it's in court order writing that they can't do it. So they can't take any more money out of the club. So the majority of the money that United make is either going to be pumped back into the football club, or it's going to be reimbursed into paying down the interest payments that United owe on the debt that they already have in the club. And the final part of the question that says, in terms of will the Glazers be gone by 2025? To be honest with you, if I had to give my personal opinion, I don't think there will be. And the context of why I say that is because everything at the moment is positive around the club, and they're still the majority owners. So everything that they didn't know what to do with is being done for them, and everybody's seen a positive side of it. The fans are a lot more positive around the future of the club. They like the new structure that's in place right now, and the Glazers have effectively just gone ahead with everything that Sir Jim Ratcliffe has said and said, listen, you're the football expert. You're the guy who's involved and had success in sports with Ineos. We're amateurs. We don't know what we're doing in British sports. We've done quite well in American sports, but we don't know the European market in terms of sports. Can you help us out? He's bought in. He's pretty much giving them the advice that they want. And I think the bigger point to it all, as to why I don't think they will be gone, is if you sit there, you let somebody else take debt on in their own name and their own company, and they're also going to pump potentially money in to build a new stadium for you, why would you go anywhere? You're the majority owner of a football club, and the value of Man United, if they had a new stadium and they had all the different glitz and glamours, as we said before, that target point that the Glazers saw as having a £10 billion evaluation, it won't become a distant dream. It will become a reality if and should United have a new stadium built. That's just the bottom short of it. So then if they did want to get bought out, they could probably demand 6 billion, like they was asking for this time round when they wanted to be bought out. They wanted 6. Nobody was going to give them that £6 billion that they wanted. So the difference is in maybe 5 or 6 years' time, that's just a minimum, 6 billion towards 10 billion if anybody wants to then buy the club fully. But again, I think Sir Jim Ratcliffe's plan and project is that he wants to build into what he's bought into, which is he wants to improve everything first. And then as far as going with the Glazer family are concerned, if it's a partnership where the Glazers aren't that much involved, to be honest with you, I don't think Sir Jim Ratcliffe's going to be as bothered about buying them out in the end anyway. But it's a quotering to say, well, the Glazers now, in the modern day era, it's funny enough, somebody said it to me the other day, the Glazer family don't ever actually get mentioned, hardly ever now. They don't get reported on. They don't get followed around by the media. They're never asked questions around futures of managers or what they think to the structure or signing a player. You know, they're never involved in any scandals around, say, are we keeping Ten Hag, are we not? They're never there. They're never reported on. They're never asked about. And in regards to Manchester United fans don't even speak about them anymore, hardly.
Yeah.
It's all Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos and Elmar Barada and Dan Ashford. It's all these people now. The Glazers don't get mentioned anymore. And as much as it pains you to say it, it is almost like United fans have just been bought off. But the difference is you can have a short-term positivity now, but you have to keep it up for the long term, is the more bigger view of it. But I think the bigger point, especially in terms of the stadium said, is that Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos will include fan-based opinion when they have an annual meeting with the supporters trust groups regarding taking any plans forward, whether they build a new stadium, redevelop, or do whatever. They're going to pass it through the fan protocol first before they sign on anything. That's the most important thing. So fans will have an engagement and an involvement of the future of their club and what direction it goes in. As opposed to maybe 12, 18 months ago, the Glazer family didn't even have a contact line to the supporters trust. Never mind actually sit in front of them in a meeting and tell them this is our plans. They didn't have a plan. The difference with Ratcliffe and Ineos is they do have a plan and they are actively exploring what they want to do in the future. But they're going to consult the fans on what they are going to do.
Fair. And I think I have a question. I'll big up Eddie before I get big on Jeff. Thought this was my injury for a couple of weeks. Yeah, but fact one's like it's month out. Yeah, it doesn't. I'll be on. That doesn't sound good, bro. It doesn't sound good. Yep. Get those likes up, guys who's watching. Get those likes, please. Des says, and we're going to move on to Mazraoui and the whole wan-bissaka thing in a sort of second. What's going on with that, and then a few other things afterwards. But yeah, any update on Rabiot would be a fantastic signing. I mean, I've already kind of said that I don't think there's anything with United and Rabiot, but I mean, is there any murmurings, Tom? Are you hearing anything?
Not as far as I'm aware, no, with Rabiot. And the one thing that we discussed this on Jarvis's Corner on United Realist TV yesterday when we were doing a show about Rabiot. It got brought up. One of the points that I made as my own personal opinion was he's technically been a free agent for the last 4 months because when you get to the last 6 months of your contract, you can sign pre-contract agreements with any club in Europe or the world. So long as they make an offer for you, you can actively accept anything. He's been in that situation. He refused a deal to stay at Juventus. So he actively left when he had a contract on the table at Juventus to sign for another 2 years. They weren't offering him the same money that he's on now. They were offering him reduced wages, and he turned it down. So the difference is a lot of these clubs in Europe have had the opportunity to sign him for the last 4 months on a pre-contract deal. None of them have taken offer to him and actually made an offer to him or his mother or anybody. So it begs the question, and all I'm going to say with how United have been moving in the market, particularly now, they don't move slowly when they want players. That's the difference. And if it's a free agent, I think if they were going to sign Adrien Rabiot, I think they would have already done it now anyway, because the way that they've moved for players in the market already, when they've actually had to negotiate with a club, they've been very quick to act. So a player that's a free agent right now, you would like to think anyway, if they really wanted Rabiot, the deal would have been signed, sealed, delivered by now. He'd probably be on the tour. That's how confident I think they would be in that deal. But the difference with this is 2 years ago when they actually tried to sign him, when John Murtough, there was the pictures of him that he'd flew out to Turin Airport, he'd met his mother, and let's just say the meeting didn't go very well based upon the wage demands that he wanted at the time. The same wage demands apply right now. He doesn't want to drop his demands. But the theory of it is that Adrien Rabiot is an old regime of Manchester United signing. He's a big name. He's a high-profile player. He's a high-profile international player because he always goes with the French national team. So in terms of his credentials commercially, would fit what United would have wanted in the past. But as far as it goes in terms of a football commitment right now, it doesn't make sense. And I always use this new policy. This is the way that Ineos work. It's does it fit the football criteria, but also financial criteria of what wages we can offer them. Yeah. If the two don't match, they don't sign players. It's as simple as that. Rabiot, does he fit the financial profile of what they would sign? No, because he doesn't want wages less than 280k a week, which United's cap is now 200. And the best part of it, in terms of the football department side of it, United want a defensive midfielder. Rabiot statistically and on the eye is not a defensive midfielder. He doesn't fit a profile that United actively want right now. So as a football commitment towards the club, he doesn't fit that either. So not a lot of it's adding up. And as far as I would say anyway right now, if they were going to sign him, I think they would have done it already.
That's fair. Thanks for the time. Hopefully, Des, that answers your question. Let's quickly move on to Matthijs to Manchester United, and obviously we'll round things up. So it won't go on for too long time because there's not been a lot of United news, but really the biggest news was probably regarding this injury. But obviously, in the last few days, there was obviously talk about, Mazraoui to Manchester United, wan-bissaka going the other way, etc., etc. United needing to sell him to get Mazraoui in. What are your thoughts on this, Tom? Because we've been told over and over again that Manchester United were going to sign a new left back, irrespective of what happens. That was the impression I got because of Malacia's injury. He's not even back training yet. Luke Shaw's injury prone. And from what I hear, Mazraoui can play both wings. So why is it now that we're hearing that signing Mazraoui is contingent on wan-bissaka going? Because if wan-bissaka goes, you're left with Dalot and Shaw, who's just come back from injury, and then Mazraoui. So you've only got potentially three. I know. I'll be honest. You have two fullbacks. You have half a fullback in Shaw, who will most likely, unfortunately, get injured again. And then you have Malacia, who's obviously not been around, So why is it that we are? Because I've been one of the things where I don't really have an issue with wan-bissaka. I think people say about this before. It's like my mentality has always been United need to build a squad. Yeah. The only thing I guess I can maybe agree is that he's going into his last year of his contract. So if they're not going to give him a new contract, then I guess you want to make some money from him, etc. And I get that, but from a purely footballing point of view, it doesn't make sense to me that you replace or sell wan-bissaka and get someone else in when you've not actually added to the number of, unless you're going to get two fullbacks. I just see us in a similar situation to last season where you start the season, maybe you start with Shaw and Dalot looks good. Shaw gets injured. Euro's already injured, and suddenly right now we have a back four crisis, and everyone starts blaming Onana again. And it's like, okay, fine, but we're not. We should be being prepared going into the season, as opposed to trying to kind of do makeshift stuff again, because for me, if you take Euro out of this side, I know people say United's doing well and doing good, but so far we've only signed Euro and Xerxes. And Xerxes is maybe is a will be a novice to the Premier League, might get some game time. That's it. Outside of that, of Euro, who's now injured, how has this squad been strengthened? I mean, maybe that's cynical, and Ineos has still got time, but so far, based on what's happened, obviously today, I'm like, how has this squad been strengthened? Because we have a game next week against City, and the lineup is going to be there. It's probably going to be no different to the lineup that we had last season. Because Xerxes is not going to start, Euro's not injured, so what's going to be different? We haven't signed a new midfielder, although maybe a guardsman come, I don't know. We have not signed a fullback, so So anyway, my rambling aside, what do you think about this whole situation, Mazraoui and United needing to sell wan-bissaka and all that type of stuff?
Yeah, the way that they're looking at in particular with wan-bissaka is from a personal connection. As far as I'm aware, wan-bissaka's family, a lot of his family and friends still live in London. He came up to Manchester when he was 21. So he was at a relatively young age. He got offered a lot of money at a very young age. We see this all the time with players. They get a lucrative offer to go to a bigger club on a bigger stage. Most of the time, I'd say 8 out of 10 times, the player will take that option, even if it means that they drop everything and move to a different continent or a different city, away from what they know and what they're comfortable with. Wan-bissaka, as far as I'm aware, he's not been unsettled in Manchester, but his heart's with his family and friends that still live in London. So when West Ham came in for him and said that we want to do a deal, it did prick up a few sort of hairs on the back of his neck to say, well, there is that option where I can effectively take my life back to what I'm comfortable with, and where everybody that I've grew up with, all my friends and family in London, I can still live a normal lifestyle from what I was doing at Crystal Palace, where I was playing my best football. And that is where he played his best football, was at Crystal Palace. Okay, United, he's had maybe a good couple of games and defensive performances and one-on-ones against, say, Mbappe or Neymar, whoever in the world. He's had a good couple of run-ins in terms of rivalries with players. But when it comes down to the bottom of it, as far as ability is concerned, United want a fullback who's going to be effective in both areas of the pitch, forward and backwards. Wan-bissaka is very one-dimensional in that I've always used this phrasing with him, I believe he's the best one-on-one defender or fullback in the world in a one-on-one duel, because it's rare that you'll get past them. The parameters of which he can wrap his legs to snap you or the ball protects and prohibits why he is as good at that area of the pitch. But the issues that a lot of United fans have had with him personally as a player is in his final third play, in the final third, has been subpar. Different coaches have come in. You've had Ollie, who brought him in with his set of coaches, couldn't do anything with him. Ralph came in, he couldn't do anything with him. Ten Hag's came in, took him away to the mountains, tried to actually try and develop him a little bit away from the club and mould him into one of his kind of players, and it's still not worked. So there's a time where you have to come down to it and say, maybe this player isn't as good as we thought from what they had thought when they paid 50 million to buy him so long ago. And at the end of the day, the way that United have looked at the policy of it is one in, one out. So if we sell a player, the money that we get for the player, we would likely to use to then replace that player with. That's kind of how United's policy has been. So by selling wan-bissaka for, say, 15, 20 million to West Ham in a compromise deal means that Mazraoui is then an option. And as far as I'm concerned right now, Manchester United have got an agreement with Bayern Munich for in and around 25 million euros, which roughly equates to around 20 to 21 million pounds, which for a player who's got Champions League experience, who has been at a big football club before in both Ajax and Bayern Munich, he does have the connection with Ten Hag, But like I said before about
But I mean,
Ineos's policy,
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with Maswara. I think my argument here is just that why is, aside from the fact that wan-bissaka is going to his final year of his contract, why is it that we have to sell wan-bissaka to allow Maswara to come in when, okay, yes, you let him go, Maswara come in, he can play, his versatile is better. Yeah, that's grand, that's fine. But we're still in a situation whereby United now only have essentially 3 fullbacks, 2.5, because Luke Shaw is basically is injury prone. I don't have to tell you that Luke Shaw is going to get injured this season. He will. Let's just be honest. He will be. So the fullbacks therefore are going to be Matthijs, because Malacia wants to be seen, and Dallo. And so we're relying on 2 fullbacks to potentially play 60 plus games throughout the season. That's madness. That's madness. Surely that's madness.
Yeah, in terms of the way that they're trying to structure it, absolutely. But how can I say it? The reasoning behind Ineos is the plan is that they hope by the first Premier League game of the season they'll have 4 fully fit fullbacks. So if that's going to be Mazraoui, if they get him in, as soon as an agreement's in place with West Ham over a fee, everything's going to move like clockwork. Mazraoui, the deal's already done in terms of a fee. Personal terms aren't an issue. He's going to take a proportionate cut from what he's at Bayern to come to Manchester United. Kind of similar to de Ligt, but he's not on the same money as de Ligt at Bayern Munich. And the difference in pattern, what I said before with the Ineos policy, does he fit the football criteria of what they want? Well, he's a lot more attacking minded than wan-bissaka is. Defensively, I think there's complications and suspect area there. But defensive play is a lot easier to coach to defenders than attacking players. Because attacking play in modern day football, as a fullback, you have to be good at it, otherwise you don't play for one of the top clubs. That's just how football is nowadays in the modern era. Whereas the old-fashioned defender, like wan-bissaka maybe a decade ago or 2 decades ago, we'd all be singing here and saying that he's one of the best fullbacks of all time because he's that good in a one-on-one defensive duel. But the policy of which that they want is by game 1 of the Premier League, they will have Delo, let's say Mazraoui if he comes in the hindsight, Shaw and Malacia will all hopefully be fit. So you'll have 4 set of them. And the way that Ineos kind of are going to risk it is if they get to January and they've got all 4 of them still fit, they see that as, okay, we'll keep it going and tick it on until the end of the season.
Are they going to take that risk based on surely Ineos, based on the second, well, to be honest, last season, but certainly when they came in, looking at what happened, looking at the fact that Shaw was basically unavailable, looking at the fact that Malacia still isn't even training, looking at even the fact that Lisandro sort of came back, surely there's going to be a thought process that things. I mean, I think even Des says any update on the Lits, surely there's a process in thinking that we can't, because with this season, the objective will most likely be to at the very least get back into the Champions League. They have to get back into the Champions League. So, and the part of the reason why Ten Hag was even allowed to continue on was the idea of the extenuating circumstance regarding injuries, etc. So surely Ineos, if they're sensible, should be thinking, well, hang on a minute, why would we want to go into the following season taking another risk or taking risks to players? Because as I said, as it stands now, and obviously there says any update on de Ligt, and then Segon says, are we still going to buy Ugarte? So regarding those 2 players, as it stands, if we get those 2 players, and I'm like, okay, fine, we've added to the depth to what we already have, scored it, okay, fine, whatever. But if we don't currently right now, why would we assume that going into next season where we had tons of injuries to different players and we already started the season with injuries, that we're not going to pick up injuries to this already thin squad? It sounds like a massive risk to me when they're expecting that Ten Hag is going to compete for top 4, get into the Champions League, and bearing in mind we're playing the Europa League this season, where we're playing on Thursday night, and we're going to be playing more games in the league because of the new season. I just feel that if you're a sensible person, you're thinking, okay, if either sell wan-bissaka now, get the money, and go and get two fullbacks, or offer him maybe a 1-year extension deal or something like that if he's happy to stay.
Yeah.
Much like you do with Ten Hag, effectively. I don't know.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying, Gian. It's almost from what you're saying there. That is almost what a lot of match-going fans and Manchester United fans are going to say. The difference is, what Ineos would turn around and say to you is, we can't fix everything in one transfer window. And I know it's very cliche that they would say that, but you are going to have to give them a bit of time to fix all of the squad. You don't buy a whole new starting 11 in one window. It takes probably 2-3 windows to do it effectively and efficiently. The difference is, if they get De Ligt in, okay, by the end of, I would say, mid-October, you will have all of your signings that you will probably want all in this squad. So Yoro will be there. You'll have De Ligt in the door. You'd potentially have Ugarte there, and you'd have Xerxes. And potentially Mazraoui as well. So you've got 5 new players in that squad, which you've already inherited, and you've probably made upgrades on for the players that they are replacing, a lot of people would say. So they've brought in half of a new team of players and hope that they're going to work together or build partnerships and get them back up the league table. That's the way that they're fighting it down. The difference with the Shaw and the Malacia situation is, yes, both of them missed massive parts of last season, and United didn't really have a left-hand side of the pitch for last season. So, with all due respect to it, a lot of United fans are going to be concerned about it, absolutely. But the difference is, when they have both of those players back fully fit, that's then where United are going to look at it and think, okay, if we lose one of them, it's not so bad, because we do have centre-backs who can convert and play as a left-back and cover. You also have, on the right-hand side, with De Ligt and Mazraoui, both of them can fill in at left-back if you need them to. Yes, it's not ideal, but it's a short-term fix. And the best way that I can say for it is, if they then get to, say, the following summer, so next summer, they'll probably go out there and buy a first-team left-back and spend £50 million on a quality one that's actually going to be a finished article, and not one of these development players.
I don't disagree with what you're saying, Tom. But then what I would then push back on is then say, well, then if that's going to be Ineos's mindset, then they're going to have to adjust expectations for the season. So because,
of course,
because if you're going to say, "Oh, right, Ten Hag, we expect you to, yes, okay, on a trip, we expect you to get back into the Champions League with the squad that you have." Now go, this is as it stands right now, assuming that De Ligt and Ugarte don't come in. As it stands right now, this is effectively the same squad, bar Xerxes, that you had last season. The same squad that can potentially pick up injuries, and they will. Shaw will get injured. Casemiro will probably get injured. Maguire, whatever, they'll pick up injuries. And then you're expecting to get a different result when Arsenal, okay, maybe not Liverpool, but certainly Arsenal, City would have definitely strengthened. Spurs and Chelsea, I don't really know what's going to happen to those clubs, to be honest. But the point I'm trying to make is that, we finished 8th with basically this, I bet won the FA Cup. To then assume that somehow we're going to go from 8th to top 4 without investment in the squad depth for the challenge, I think is probably incredibly quite naive. And sixth, okay, fine. 5th or 6th, okay, maybe, yeah, sure, assuming injuries, but especially when you then consider the additional Europa League games in the Thursday nights, which obviously we know because of the differences and the timing and stuff like that, less time to recover. So again, more injuries. The in my opinion, and I think a lot of United fans don't want to hear this, is that the expectations, if things stay the way they are, should be incredibly low.
Yeah.
Because
no, it's fair. It's fair what you're saying.
So because I think everyone, as you kind of alluded to, I think no one's really talking about the Glazers exception. I think a lot because again, signings. Oh, Euro, it's great, cool. Yeah, you're right, exactly. But Euro alone was never going to transfer Manchester United. And unfortunately, there's so many players with a lot of potential. The Mainus, Ahmeds, etc. That I've got talent, but at the end of the day, in order to be where we are with football right now, with the amount of games that are being played, is that the best squads, the team with the best squads, generally, especially when it comes to league football, knockout is a bit different, but certainly league football, to win the league, you have to have the best. You have to have the best squad. That's why City won the league so many times. They just simply have the best, not the best 11 necessarily. Like at times Liverpool have had a better, in my opinion, starting 11 than City have. What City have had, which have been successful, even Arsenal, I would argue, Arsenal's best 11 could potentially rival City's. But what they have had is they've had a squad. And speaking of which, actually, Des actually says, any truth Obi Martin's coming in as third choice striker in the first team? I mean, that obviously United signing Obi Martin from Arsenal. And I think what man's understanding was that he signed it with a first pathway, a first team pathway to football. So is there kind of truth to that he came to United because he was more likely to get like a chance in the first team?
Well, the way that United had actually pitched it to him, there was a host of clubs across Europe that wanted this kid's signature. United was almost the chosen one, as to he chose to come to them, and because he believed it was the best project. Arsenal offered him a lot of money to stay with that squad. The difference and the reason why he turned down staying at Arsenal to come to United was United showed him and his family a statistic between Arsenal and Manchester United, and the statistic was under 18-year-olds who have had a progression pathway to the first team and how many minutes they've actually had in the first team for players under the age of 18. Manchester United's ratings was near enough 4,000 minutes. So players under the age of 18 have played nearly 4,000 minutes in the last 5 seasons at Manchester United. That's the way that they've ranked it for the young players at United. At Arsenal, have a guess how many minutes in 5 years, G, young players had in that system?
No, I don't know, 15 minutes?
Oh, you're close, 13. 13
yes.
minutes is how long a young player's had in that system squad, under 18 years old. So in terms of creating a pathway, they offered him a lot of money to stay in that system, but their track record of giving players a pathway to that first team isn't very good. Whereas United's foundations as a club has always been, we develop young players from the youth ranks and we give them that platform to play at the first team. That's the difference. And especially at United, when you cooperate a lot of the players in this squad right now, you would argue to say that they are Manchester United's academy. They are one of the most academy-driven football clubs in the world. Most of the squad is built of players who have been through the system. Johnny Evans, Tom Heaton, Marcus Rashford's another one. McTominay's another one who's still come through the ranks. You've got Kobe Manu, who's the new kid on the block who's come through the ranks. Garnacho. So there is that pathway there. There's 7 players that United can say in that meeting to Obi Martin. Arsenal can probably name maybe 2, maybe 3 at a push. Saka, Smith Rowe, Martinelli, who they bought in but came through the academy for 1 season and then was a first team player. They can't really sell their academy but as well as United can, and that's where they've ended up getting the kid over the other teams. But in particular, as far as I understand anyway, Ruud van Nistelrooy played a massive particular part in him coming to Manchester United instead of Arsenal, based upon he sees a fulfilment of how you can develop strikers or wide players in particular to be full free line attackers. So what I mean by that is, instead of telling the kid, I'm going to develop, if you come to United as an attacking coach of the team, I'm going to develop you as a striker. Ruud van Nistelrooy's pressing to the kid and basically pledged to him to say, I'm going to develop you to play across all of the front line. So it gives you more chance of opportunities to A, make a first team spot in the squad, because it gives you 3 positions to fight for across the front line, not 1 in a number 9 position. B, it means that if you then have a successful career at United, you will play anywhere across the front line for maybe 10 years and see, I am one of the best attacking young coaches at developing young talent. I've done it at PSV with young players. I did it with players like Xavi Simons. I've done it with players like Jarrad Branthwaite. I've done it at PSV. I've got the track record of doing it with young players. Come to United and I'll give you that opportunity that I gave those young players to develop with you. That's the difference of what Van Nistelrooy played with the role of it. And with young players, he's almost got a little sparkle to him. And that's one of the things that I say in terms of United use the tools that you have at your disposal. If you're signing a midfielder, okay. If you have a coach who's been a player or been a midfielder, use them to sell the club to that player. Ruud van Nistelrooy is an icon striker, not just at Manchester United, but in football in general. He is an icon player. He's a recognisable character. If you walk down the street, you'll know Ruud. You put that kid in a meeting or on a phone call with him, that because they played the same position, you can sell it to the kid in the same way that you bring in, for example, Darren Fletcher now, who's a part of the coaching staff first team. If you want to sell midfielders to United, speak to Darren Fletcher. He's been one of them, guys. That's the way that this is how I'm saying that United need to run football properly. But at the end of the day, they've signed a very top talent that a lot of clubs wanted. Arsenal, to their credit, were prepared to blow. I think it would have made him the second highest player from their academy to have an increased wages over £100,000 a week for a 16-year-old, which I think that shows a level of intent as to why they wanted to keep him so much. But again, a pathway is there. Højlund and Xerxes, as like I've said before, under Ruud van Nistelrooy's policy, they're going to learn to be attackers, not just number nines. So they will be developed in terms of wing play, number 10 play, false nine roles, out and out number 9 box to box, goal scorers. You're going to be developed as an attacker, not a number 9. So you're going to get the full package. And for a kid, that is probably the music to his ears to say, do you know something? I actually prefer that, because if I fuck up, and let's say I'm not as prolific in goal when I start getting a little bit older, but I might be a creative player. Okay, I can develop as a winger, as a number 10. So I've still got a career. Whereas some clubs would look at him, G, and think, well, if he's a number 9, if you can't score goals when you're 18 years old, you're never going to score goals. That's how some clubs just are in a run. So at the end of the day, they've signed a young player, they've thrown the tools at him, but they've not done what they've done in recent years, which is they've just shedded money towards kids and made them come. They tried it with Bellingham a couple of years ago. They've tried it with many young players, and they've been burnt many a time by it. But the difference is now these kids are being convinced to come because of the project and because of the progression, not because of money.
Fair play, fair play. Thanks for that. So finally, as we just round, that's the last question, I think, and I think Des part gives it. Thanks for these questions, Des. Actually, so appreciate it, because he's the show. And I think we bring up as well, it's like, what outgoings do we realistically expect? Now we kind of brushed on a wan-bissaka, so I think I don't want to retread that. But are there any other outgoings that you anticipate, Tom, that Manchester United are working to try and get out of, or are likely to get out of the club?
Yeah, in terms of, I'd probably say from what I know right now, 2 players that are massive interest in them both. One of them has a bid at the moment in time with McTominay. We could probably start with McTominay anyway. Fulham put in a bid in the region of £15 million. It was rejected out of hand by Manchester United. They're being very direct with clubs, especially with McTominay in particular. It's not negotiable. It's between 30 and 35 million pounds. Ideally, United want a deal where it's 30 plus 5, so they get 35. But Fulham offered half of that price, and that was just a straight buy, 15 million. There was no add-ons, no strings to it, 15 million, that's it. They rejected out of hand. The expectation is that, irrespective of that, Fulham have just signed Emile Smith-Rowe for, I think it's believed to be 30 and plus 5 for 35. they're going to kind of build a package up where they can try and get up to around 25 and see if United bite at that. But the murmurs of what I'm hearing with United is they aren't going to budge. McTominay is one of those players that they want to rinse the money out of more predominantly, and the reason being because he is an academy growth player.
Of course
So
he is,
in
yeah.
terms of FFP, when you have an academy growth player and you can sell them, you sell them for the max amount that you can. You don't accept minimum offers for players. You don't do it for academy players. United have done it in the past, and that's probably why they've been so burnt by FFP for years. But because you've got competent people who understand that selling young players or academy growth players for big money, for more probably than what they should be worth, it actually stabilises your finances as a club. But the difference is they're not going to move on a player like McTominay because it's that influential to them. The same thing with Greenwood. They didn't really move the goalposts when it came to the price. They wanted 25 to 30 million. They ended up getting 20, I think it was 27.2 or 27.3 million pounds, all in total. So effectively, they got what they wanted in and around that region. So in terms of McTominay, I'd probably anticipate Fulham will come back in again. I personally, if I had to give a personal preference, I think McTominay will go to Fulham. It's a decent club, good setup under Marco Silva, stabilised in terms of there's established Premier League clubs. There's no real expectations that they'll get relegated or they'll
I
have a
mean,
massive
Tom,
decline drop off.
let's also bear in mind McTominay was I think was our second highest goal scorer last season.
Correct.
You know, so I mean, was he even the highest? Who was our highest goal? Was it Højlund?
I think Højlund in the end.
Højlund, yeah, just in the end.
If in all competitions, I think it was, yeah.
It's Højlund, yeah. In the Premier League, I suspect it was just him. So, but I mean, you know, so we're saying get rid of McTominay, but again, this is the thing. Almost like the defense is like, okay, we get rid of him, but are we going to replace him with someone that's going to contribute certainly with the goals, certainly with the, we signed another striker and obviously Odion, and we're hoping that we're basically putting our faith in youngsters to try and improve our GA with a midfield that, in my opinion, doesn't look any more creative than it was last season. Bruno's there, Casemiro, is on his last legs, Mainu, obviously, so, and we're hoping that the biggest issue United had last season, contrary to what people thought, even though we had defensive issues galore, in my opinion, the biggest issue was scoring goals.
Yeah.
Scoring goals. And so I think United needs to be very careful. I do think McTominay should probably moved on, but I also think that the only thing that worries me a little bit is that you're setting a guy who's responsible for was basically our second highest goal scorer last season. And you're replacing him with whom? Xerxes, potentially. Are you really confident that we're going to get that, especially when we have no we don't really have any creative. Bruno is not, in my opinion, a creative midfielder. Right? He does create sometimes, and he's good at it, but consistently, he's not like someone like Martin Odegaard, for example. So I'm not sure. Go on. So I guess finally, Tommy, was there anyone else?
Yeah, Lindelof, in particular. Regarding Lindelof, he's, as I've been over this before, is the hardest centre-back to sell out of Maguire and Lindelof because, you can push him because he's an international player, but again, he's at that age where he's probably better years are going to be behind him in 12 months' time. Lindelof, to his credit anyway, he has had a couple of knocks over the last couple of years. He has had some fitness issues. So trying to sell him onto another club's hard from a development or even just a present squad player is difficult. But the difficulty that United have right now is Lindelof has a lot of clubs that are actually interested in him, but none of them are actually making offers for him. That's the problem. And United aren't in the liberty of that. They're not a club right now with the way that they run. They don't push players onto clubs and say, sign this player. This is the reasons why. They can't really do that with Lindelof because there's not a lot of positives to him that they can actually sell about him, other than he's a quality international player. He plays high level for Sweden. He has played at United for so many years. He's won XYZ trophies. That's it. The age is going to be a factor of why clubs won't sign him. The fitness issues is the reason why they won't sign him. The injury record in the last couple of years is probably going to be another reason why they don't sign him. There's more cons to signing him than there is pros that United can probably sell to clubs, and that's the reason why it's probably going to be so hard to sell him. But the difference is he does have clubs that are interested in him. And again, like I say, when you start getting, probably after the Community Shield, for them when you have the Premier League starting in the next couple of weeks following on from that, clubs are then going to directly go for players. If they really want a player, as much as, like I say, with the clubs that are interested in Lindelof, you've got a lot of clubs from within Italy that are interested in him. Fenerbahce, and funnily enough, where one Jose Mourinho has now gone to, would happily sign him, but they're not going to sign him for stupid money. Turkish clubs don't sign players for ridiculous money in modern day football anyway. So going on to progression with it anyway, it's a hard deal to sell to clubs, and nobody's made them concrete offers for him. So the players that they have been made offers for, they're actively going to negotiate to get them out of the door. So West Ham came to the door, said, we want to sign wan-bissaka. What's the contracts of the deal? What prices are we talking? And they're negotiating it. United are happy to negotiate with it. The same thing with McTominay. They're happy to have clubs bid for him, but they're not going to move the goalposts in terms of the asking price because he's a valued asset, because he's an academy growth player. Wan-bissaka's not that. They're going to have to make a loss on him and write the losses off the books for what they bought him for years ago. But it's one of those signings where you're going to have to look at it and just think, we're going to have to swallow the pill. And if we can get a player who we believe is maybe going to be an upgrade in terms of what we want to do for the future in Mazraoui, and it's for similar money of what you're going to sell him for, okay, it's not a bad deal to do then in the end. And that's how they'll look at it. But at the end of the day, in terms of a mass clear out of players, they've actually sold quite a few players at the moment, but they've not recouped as much money as people might think. But for the profile of the players that they have actually sold, I don't think they've actually done some bad deals, to be fair. You know, Donny van der Beek's been out of the door, Kwambala's out the door, Greenwood. So there is a couple of players who have brought in a decent wedge of money. For Kwambala and Greenwood, you've quoted over £35 million back into the club. McTominay, if you add into that, maybe if you get 25 to 30, okay, you've made sales of 50, 60 million. Then if you get maybe a little bit of money out of Lindelof or a Maguire or somebody, you might be pushing up towards 80, 75, 80. So it might not work out as bad in the end, but I think the level-headedness of United is, if we're going to sell certain players, let's make sure we replace them with quality players afterwards. And the theory always for midfield anyway was Casemiro was going to be sold. Yeah. They've not managed to get any offers for Casemiro. He's very similar to Lindelof. He's got a lot of clubs that are interested in him, but nobody's making offers for him. So
they can't pay the wages.
It's more likely that they'll keep Casemiro. Again, the wages is a factor for clubs as well. So it's more likely they'll keep Casemiro, and you might have a scenario where Casemiro and Ugarte are the two midfielders, and McTominay is the one that leaves in the end. But again, it's one of those situations where United aren't a club that are going to force players on to clubs, because that's not how they do business. The way that they want to do business is constructively with clubs who are actually going to approach them, sit down like gentlemen and say, right, let's talk numbers. Not, okay, we need to get rid of this player, we're panicking, we need money in the club, we'll sell him for whatever. They don't want to be prescribed as being desperate. They want to be detrimental negotiators.
Thank you for that, Tom. Thank you so much. And I think we will round things up there. I appreciate you coming onto the channel, like, as always. Thanks so much. And hopefully, guys, you've been educated and informed. Obviously, make sure you check out Tom at Tom Journalist 1. But thanks so much, guys. Obviously, if there is any breaking news by Manchester United, we'll let you know. Season is starting, so we're probably doing our pre-season next week. We're doing a pre-season, not pre-season, season preview the season with best 11, all the rest of it, stuff like that as well. So look out for that next week. Remember, guys, if you are new to the channel, like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Studio. Follow us on Twitter and smash the notification button. Have a nice day, everyone, and cheers. Peace, 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 peace.